Good afternoon, fellow ruminators. Welcome back to another session on my declassified Caribbean news channel, news and commentary channel. And today we're going to be looking at the Hantavirus, what's real, what's hype, and why people are concerned about this virus. Are we going to go into another lockdown? And that's a possibility that we might be heading. So, hantavirus, lockdowns, and energy rationing. What's really happening? So many things are happening around the world, and we really wonder that if the world is about to come to an end as we know it. Reports of hantavirus and recent concerns tied to cruise ship incidents have sparked questions around the world. But for many, this isn't just about one virus, it's about what could come next. In this video, we break down what hantavirus actually is, how it spreads, and why some people are linking it to broader fears shaped by recent global experiences. From past lockdowns to ongoing economic and energy pressures, there is a growing sense that multiple issues may be converging. So, in this concern, or is this concern justified? Or are people connecting dots that don't belong together? This discussion focuses on facts, context, and bigger picture so you can make informed decisions without panic. But one of the things that we are accustomed to here in the Caribbean and the world in by extension is the fact that we like to respond by fear, through fear. If it's something is not fearful, we don't want to respond. Or if it's not just gossips or something that is going to jolt us to doing something, we generally don't respond. So we are going to find that many things are going to happen and take us off guard, and many people will not know what to do. Reports are emerging about hantavirus, including concerns tied to deaths on a cruise ship, and naturally, people are asking questions. But for many, this isn't just about one virus. After everything the world has gone through in recent years, some are starting to connect bigger dots, linking health scares, lockdowns, and even ongoing economic and energy pressures, which we are hearing a lot about. So the real question is, are these concerns grounded in reality, or are people drawing conclusions too quickly? Let's break this down carefully. Hantavirus is not new. It has been known for decades and is typically spread through contact with rodent droppings, urine, or saliva. It's not something that usually spreads easily from person to person, and cases tend to be rare. So right away, this is very different from what we saw with COVID. But when people hear virus and see reports of deaths, concern is understandable, and we understand that they have gain of function laboratories that even though a disease might not be contagious, they can make it contagious. And that is what we have to understand. Many of us don't understand what we mean by gain of function. It means, therefore, that a disease that was known to be natural can be recreated in a lab. So you have an experimented virus and not a real virus. Some people even ask, are viruses real? I'm not going to go get down that rabbit hole. But the fact of the matter, gain of function, is that you can recreate a disease and say that it is from natural causes when it is not. And some people, of course, many people now think that COVID was a disease that was a lab experiment, right? So you have to make your decision. I can't force you to think how you don't want to think. And you've got to inform yourselves. And many of us, particularly in this region, are not people who like to read and to do extensive research. The reaction we're seeing now isn't happening in a vacuum. Over the past few years, the world experienced widespread lockdowns, restrictions, and major disruptions to daily life, all triggered by a health crisis. So when a new virus enters into the headlines, many people don't just see the virus, they remember what followed. That memory shapes how people respond today. But I must say that we're losing our memory, and most of a large portion of our global population is suffering from Alzheimer's, right? We're not remembering what really happened. And I think what the memory is so politicized nowadays because we're so polarized that we cannot really come up with any meaningful discussions because it is so polarized and textured with politics and our ideology, what we think we know of the world. And that is a serious crisis. Now, now, at the same time, people are dealing with rising costs. That's rising economic costs, rising food costs, the cost of housing, economic uncertainty, and in some regions, even discussions around energy strain or rationing. And we can see that energy cost is going up. Gas oil, I understand, is getting out of hand. Many people can't afford gas oil. So now you have multiple pressures happening at once: health concerns, economic challenges, energy uncertainty. And that combination is what's causing people to step back and ask, is this just another isolated issue or part of something bigger? And yesterday I went on a live to talk about the one world religion, and we spoke about, in fact, I've read from articles and we saw videos I showed to the audience, the viewing audience clippings. And this particular pastor was suggesting that our politicians cannot solve our problems. They are not going to solve our problems. And that is right. The fact of the matter is that they're suggesting, which they're wrong, that religion is going to be that which is going to solve the problem. So what they're trying to do now, they're trying to weigh you down by having you have a lot of corruption charges against your prime ministers, and some of them are deliberately done so that you are going to be so exhausted and you don't know what to turn to. But in addition to that, you'll be suffering economically, terrorist acts, lots of confusion because it's going to be ordo ab cao, which means order out of chaos. So some of our global elites, and that's why you have to understand systems of power, which I've been trying to educate you about. Well, you don't want to listen to that. You are more caught up with hearing one corruption charges after another. Why did Juliet Holness touch the mace in Jamaican Parliament? And then you go off on a tangent on that, and then you exhaust the topic, and then another corruption charges comes up, and you keep going on, and you don't understand that a lot of this is a part of the package, a part of the narrative, a part of the strategies that the global elites are using, the powers that be, to control your mind, and then you are going to become so exhausted because eventually you're going to realize that these people are working together, and then you are going to find yourselves not being able to connect the dots, and then you have to submit to a world messiah, a global messiah, someone who is going to usher peace in the world. And that's not going to be by a politician or a black person or white or Asian. All right, they are already making it that it is going to be by a spiritual leader. Okay, you've got to do your research, but many of you are again intellectually lackadaisical. But it's important to separate what we know from what we assume. Right now, hantavirus remains a relatively rare illness with a very specific method of transmission. There is no confirmed global scenario suggesting widespread outbreaks or immediate policy responses like we saw before. At the same time, public concern itself is real, and it reflects how recent events have changed the way people interpret new information. But what is happening also is the fact that they have told us before that the coronavirus was not going to affect us, and eventually it did. They were suggesting that we didn't have to have a lockdown, and eventually we did. So how can we even trust what they report to us? Scientifically, it might be sound, but they might be doing something to enhance science and to make it appear as if it is real science when it is false science. Spurious, right? So we have to begin now to think that outside of the box and to think how our leaders think so that we can be 4 steps ahead of them. If not, we are going to be left in total chaos and confusion. Now, the BBC News report, that's the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation, had today hantavirus strain that spreads between humans found in cruise ship passengers. So even though they're saying that it is not normally spread from human to human, but they're suggesting that there's a strain. So now they're going to say, well, before it didn't spread from human to human, but right now we're seeing that science has found that. They're going to use that. That's how the narrative that they're going to disperse to you. And you are going to believe them because, again, you do not understand how the world operates. Now, so we have here a rare strain of hantavirus, which has been known to spread between people in close contact, has been found in patients linked to a deadly outbreak on a Dutch cruise ship. The health ministry in South Africa said the Andes strain of the virus was identified in two people who had been evacuated from the ship to the country. Three passengers on the MV Hantavirus have died after it set sail from Argentina on its voyage across the Atlantic Ocean around a month ago. Another three people with symptoms were evacuated from the ship to receive medical care in the Netherlands on Wednesday morning, the World Health Organization announced. At this stage, the overall public health risk remains low. The WHO's chief Tedros Adhanom, and very difficult to call this name here, said, right? So I don't, I'm not going to be able to call his last name, right? So let's call him Tedros. Monitoring and following up for passengers on board and for those who have already disembarked has been initiated, he added. So we are seeing here where they're telling us that there is a strain, according to the BBC, that might be able to pass from human to human. So even though scientifically, as we have known it, it is not a virus that passes from human to human, that can be transmitted from human to human, but they're suggesting that there is a strain. Did they create that strain in a laboratory? And we, if we remember also carefully, we can. I remember that there was, the whole matter of the coronavirus started with the people on the cruise ship too, right? Right. So are they replaying the same game with us? Right. But how many people will remember? You're so caught up with eye speed and other things that you do not, your neurons are fast leaving your brains and you're not able to connect the dots. And that is what they know what they're doing. Sending you all of these, gimmickries and, the nonsense that high speed is running around the Caribbean with and the world by extension, and you are caught up with that nonsense. Okay, and they know what they're doing, and then they will shut you down. You have no job, and you will suffer. Okay, well, high speed is millionaire. He's a millionaire, right? And running around the place. So you need to get your act together, which I'm sure that you are not in any way interested in doing that. Now, there's a report here from the PBS that's coming from the United States, PBS News. It says, can hantavirus spread between humans and what to know as WHO investigates ship outbreak? Three people are dead and nearly 150 remained quarantined Tuesday on a cruise ship off the coast of West Africa as the World Health Organization investigates an outbreak of the rare but deadly hantavirus on board. William Branham speaks with Dr. Celine Gounder, an infectious disease specialist, epidemiologist, and editor-at-large for public health at KFF News to learn more. Now, this is what he asked her. We can't go through the entire interview. Three people are dead and nearly 150 people quarantined on a cruise ship off the coast of West Africa. The World Health Organization is investigating an outbreak of the rare but deadly hantavirus on board. When you see the media acting up, about three cases and three dead, and well, three people dead and other cases mentioned, you must know that they are up to something, they are moving to something, right? So please stay on board and make sure that you are alert. Make sure that you are alert and not just being alert at to what they're saying, but you have to look deeper at what their pronouncements are. And many of us are just unable to do that. We just sit uncritically before our TVs and read our newspapers uncritically without connecting the dots. And I did say before, if you are not aware, if you have not purchased any books, to have informed yourselves about what really happened behind the scenes during COVID, then you are not going to understand, hear from what is happening. You will not understand. You just won't understand the world in which you live. Because COVID re-engineered the world as we know it. We're not living the same world pre-COVID. And that is what you've got to understand. Many of you are still not understanding, and many of you don't want to understand. Don't want to understand it. He's talking rubbish. He's distracting us. From what? Because your minds are already distracted, and that is why you think I'm distracting you. Why would I distract you? Because if I were distracting you, then I would be talking about the foolishness as I speak, and well, I speak about him, but I contextualize him and let you know that this is all about distracting your mind so you're not focusing on what you need to focus on. So this is what he was asking her, the interviewer there from PBS, and she says here, William Branham, Amna, there is no cure or FDA-approved vaccine for hantavirus, which is normally spread by contact with infected rodents. But the WHO said today they believe there is evidence of a rare instance of human-to-human transmission on that ship. So So miraculously, we're seeing now a strain in which on that ship, there's not usually we don't have a human-to-human transmission, right? But there is a there's evidence of a rare instance of human-to-human transmission on that ship. This is what she's saying. The agency has identified 2 confirmed and 5 suspected cases, including the 3 deaths. One man is now in critical condition in an ICU in South Africa. The WHO says the risk to the public remains low, but they've always said that, and then we say that it's going and it's going all around the world because we've now learned that it can be transmitted human to human. But for more on this outbreak, we are joined again by Dr. Celine Gounder. She's editor, and we don't have to get into that. Okay, what we're seeing in the world today is total distraction. But let's listen to also another report coming from the BBC when this guy was asked, is this virus going to create a lockdown? Are we going to go back through another COVID experience? Now, what I'm thinking, what I am looking at, trying to examine, and I think is going to happen, is that they're going to join this climate change crisis with the whole matter of the energy rationing and energy crisis that we're facing, along with the hantavirus, to say that we might need to close down. We might need to protect our environment because our environment is exhausted, and that is why we're having all these diseases, emerging. Right? So we need to rest. The environment needs a break. I think that is where we're heading. And the Pope's actually his thesis, his what do they call these things that they produce every day? His encyclical that he produced on the earth in 2015. If you read that document, he is the master of that. All of this climate change agenda is coming from the Vatican. I hope you understand that. That is, what's the name of the encyclical about the earth? I can't remember right now. But if you go through that document, which I have done at least 2 or 3 times, you are going to understand that the Pope is in bed with the WEF and the United Nations on climate change. And the Pope wants to reintroduce, as it were, a day of rest for people because he thinks that people need to get back to God. And that is where we're going to have the one world religion, people thinking that, oh, that is off and it's not going to happen. But the same way in which you had a scientific lockdown, you can have religious lockdowns. Very important that you understand that. And it is going to happen. You're going to quote me and you might say, wow, he was telling us the truth and we did not listen to him. Very important that you get your acts together. And many of you are still running around like you don't know what's going on. But guess what? You have to think. Now, let's listen to what he's saying here on the BBC. Let me come here.
Serious situation for those who remain on board the cruise ship. There must be a lot of worry about more cases emerging among the remaining passengers and the crew on board. But the World Health Organization says that currently the risk to the global population is low.
Mhm.
But public health experts are going to continue to monitor and assess that situation. That risk assessment will be updated if they think it's necessary. So at the moment, no, I think we are a long way from a lockdown, and this really doesn't look like a coronavirus moment. It's obviously still a really serious situation for those who remain on board the cruise ship. There must be a lot of worry about more cases
Well,
emerging
I think
among the remaining passengers and the crew on board. But the World Health Organization.
okay, I think that we're playing it. Yeah. So this is where we are now, and we have to understand, be prepared that there might be a lockdown. Okay, they're already suggesting that because of the energy crisis that we might be faced to lockdown. And if we have a terrorist attack on our shores, whether in the United States or wherever, because of the war that is unfolding right now in Iran, and these things can happen, okay, you need to get yourself prepared because right now they are hitting us on multiple fronts. And if we're not ready, we are going to, everything is going to, the world is going to be just, is going to collapse right before our eyes overnight. And these movements rather, are rapid ones. What we're seeing happening now in our final days, right now in the end times, what people call the end time prophecy, what is happening now is going to happen so rapidly that if you don't have your house in order, and even when you have your house in order, you will be taken off guard in some cases. But if you have your house in order in terms of your minds, being able to understand that the world is not the way in which you view it, there are more things happening. You must understand system of powers, who is behind these things, and what are their agenda. And once you know that, you'll be able to get your mind, your thoughts, and your family, friends, colleagues, and help them to understand what lies ahead and that we are heading for a time of trouble, such the likes of which the world has never seen. So get ready, stay tuned, and be focused. Thank you so much for joining. I hope that you'd like, share, and subscribe.